Yeah. Hi guys. Thanks for joining the session. And we are going to learn about radius in this session. Okay. So do you know? Do anyone know what is the importance of radius? Anyone has any? Uh, do you know anything about the radius? Why we use radius? Anyone?
No, no.
Okay. Yeah.
We
We'll
use it
discuss.
for authentication.
Yeah. Authentication. That is correct. 1 minute, guys. Yeah, I'm back here. Yeah, someone mentioned for authentication. Yeah, that's correct. So, any other answers? Yeah, no issues. So, before entering into the radius, so you have to know some general information. Okay. So, most probably, whenever you are logging to the any of the servers, or whenever you are logging to the routers, how you can log in? Any network device. Okay. So any network device, how you can log in? So you can use any, okay, SSH or telnet, right? And in some cases you can use web GUI as well. Okay. So in order to do that, you need to have, okay, the user information. You need user information locally on the routers, right? So if you have 100 users, okay, so if you have 100 users in your company, so all the 100 user information should be there on the router, right? So all 100 user information should be there. So if every user want to log into the router, they have to their user information in the router, so that router will successfully, okay, provide an SSH or telnet or GUI access to the routers. Okay. So if you have only one router, that will be an easy for you to create 100 users, or that, okay, to create 100 users. Okay, that will bit burden for the administrator to create 100 users. But okay, fine. Okay, if you have one router in your network, so creating 100 users, okay, we can we can consider it as an okay to the administrator. But if you have 100 routers in your network, okay, if you have 100 routers in the network, in all the routers you have to create 100 users, so that will become burden, right? So to avoid that, or to rule out that, so we are going to, okay, use, okay, some authentication servers where every user information will be available here. Okay. So only we need, if you have 100 users, you can create 100 users here. And if you want to access, okay, SSH or telnet or GUI of that particular device, so you can, okay, this authentication request will send to the authentication server, and then it is going to, if the user information is available in that particular server, so they will be going to respond, or maybe if the user information is not available, they are going to reject your access. Okay. So that's what we are going to learn in this radius. Okay. But before going to radius, so we will be having an, okay, we'll be having a protocol which is AAA. So AAA is an, okay, standardized protocol where, okay, this using an ACS servers, it is going to authenticate the users. Okay. So what is AAA means? So first year refers for authentication. Okay. First year refers for authentication. So why we are doing authentication means to know who you are. Okay, so to know who you are, because if you want to authenticate, you should have user credentials. So if you have user credentials, you are going to authenticate, and the server will be going to identify you whether you are a legitimate user or not, or whether your credentials are available in the server or not. Okay, so apart from authentication, so someone mentioned why we are using radius, means radius is used for authentication. That's correct, but not only authentication, there are two more factors available. So the second one is an authorization. So authorization means, so after okay, after authenticating the user, so the server will tell you, okay, what type of information the user is allowed to use. Okay, what are the users allowed to access. Okay, so this authorization, the servers will provide authorization, and what are the things that are allowed to access the users, those information will only be able to access using an authorization. Okay, these servers will provide authentication and authorization, and in the authorization, the user will be allowed to access what they are going to, okay, what are the information they are allowed to access. Okay, and the last one, the last year refers for accounting. Okay, accounting in sense, so the server is going to, okay, log your session. So when you are logging, and what you are doing, and when you are logging out. Okay, so it will be monitoring, just like accounting is just for a monitoring purpose. Okay, accounting, what accounting will do, accounting will be doing your, okay, log your session in sense, it is going to check when you are login. Okay, login time. So just take as a login time, and during the login time, what you are doing, and log out. When you are log out, it will be logging all this information. So accounting in sense, so this accounting will be helpful to the administrators whenever whenever they are using ACS servers. So to track the user, okay, user activity. Okay, so if they are using any other if they are using any other thing which is not allowed, they will be also logging here, and so the administrator will comes to know so what they are doing during their login logout times. Okay, so these are the concept of AAA. So the first A refers for authentication. So this authentication will helps to identify who you are, and authorization. So authorization will helps you, okay, will helps the administrator, so to mention, okay, to allow the users what they want to access, and accounting for monitoring purpose. Okay, the server will monitor the login time and logout time, and during the between the login logout time, what the user or going what the user are doing. Okay, so in this AAA, so we are having an two protocols. Okay, so AAA can be we can implement using multiple protocols, but basically we can use Radius and TechX. Okay, so these are the majorly protocols that is using in the real-time network. So to, okay, to implement AAA concept, but Radius is an open standard. Okay, so Radius is an open standard. First, Radius is means, so in this session we can focus on the Radius. Okay, so what is Radius means? Remote authentication dial in user service. Okay, so this is the remote authentication dial in user service, where it is going to provide all these things. Okay, so provide authentication, authorization, accounting, and this is an open standard. Okay, so this is an open standard. So Radius is an open standard, but TechX is an Cisco proprietary. Okay, so only you can use on the TechX, you can use only on the Cisco device, but Radius is an open standard. You can use it anywhere. So Radius is mostly used, okay, AAA protocol because of its open standard. Okay, and Radius will use. UDP for transmission. Okay, so radius will be mostly used for as an transmission protocol, and we are talking about UDP as a transmission protocol, right? So it will use UDP port number 1812 for authentication and authorization, authentication and authorization, and 1813 for accounting. Okay, so this is an UDP pro. It will use a UDP protocol as an transmission protocol, and it will use an port numbers 1812 for authentication and authorization, and it will use 1813 for accounting. Okay, and most probably this will provide, when compared with the TechX, Radius will provide greater security and accounting to your, whenever you are accessing something on the network. So this is about the general information about the Radius. But now we can we can learn how the user is going to send an request, and how the users are going to authenticate with the server. Okay, so we can take the same model. So we will be having, let's take, we'll be having a user, and let's take, we have a router in between, and we have an server, ACS server. Okay, so the connection should be like this. So let's take, you have a user here, and this is a router where we are going to access the router from the user machine, and this is an server, okay, which will be calling as an ACS server. So access, okay, access control system. What is ACS servers means? Access control system, which will be calling this server will be calling as an ACS server, right? ACS means access control system. Okay, so now what will happen means, here in the Radius we will be having multiple messages. Okay, so we will be having multiple messages. So first I can okay, I will note out here. So we will be having multiple messages in the Radius. The first message is access request, second one is access challenge, third one is accept, and fourth one is access reject. Okay, so what are those messages means? In order to authenticate, okay, these Radius will be going to use all these messages, and using all these messages, how the server, how the user is going to react, and how the server is going to react, we can mention here in the access request messages. Okay, so first, so what we are doing is, so we can just divide this into three portions. Okay, so first what what we are doing is, we are trying to, okay, our agenda is, we want to access router from our user machine, either it is from SSH or telnet or GUI, right? So when we can trying to SSH to the RO, okay, trying to SSH to router. So we send an SSH request to the router. So what router will do? So what router will do means, router will send an message like who you are. It will send first who are you, because router has to know, right? So router has to know who are you, and why we are reaching him. So why we are reaching the router. So that's where the user will send an access request message. Okay, the first message is an access request. So the user will send access request packet, okay, or access request message. What this access request message contains, okay, so this access request message contains generally the user credentials, okay, so the user credentials like username, password, okay, this information will contains in the, okay, uh, this access request message, and it will send it to the router, okay. So what router will do in the router, so in the router we don't have any, okay, we are not going to create any usernames and passwords here. So in order to authenticate the router, we have created to reach out to the ACS server, which is our radius server, okay. So we have created the route. We are creating a configuration in the router in such a way that whenever you get a request for access of the router, so you have to reach the server. So between router and server, we need to have an reachability. Okay, if there is no reachability, this access request message the router will not send to the server. Okay, so once the router get an access request with user credentials, so it is going to send an request to the server. Okay, so now the router is going to send, so this access request message to the server, okay. So same whatever we sent in the access request, so the router will send the same access request message to the server. So in the access request message we send a username and password, or generally if you are not using username and password, if you are using any security certificate, so that will also include. So generally the router will be going to, okay, not router, the server is going to verify all this information, whatever we have shared here. So the server is going to verify whether, so let's suppose I am going to access the SSH of the router using, let's take I am admin as a username and password tbn at the rate 12345, okay. I, s- I am going to access the router using these credentials. So now, so we are already sending the same to the, okay, server as an access request, right? The server is going to verify whether admin with password tbn at the rate 12345 is available here in the server database or not. Okay, it is going to verify that. If, okay, once the ACS server get an access request, it can do all these things. Okay, might be it can do all these things. Okay, so once the server get an request, might be it can access, okay, it can send an access challenge, or it can send an access accept, or it will send an access reject, okay, based upon this credential that whatever we have shared. Okay, so let's suppose, so if we have any, okay, if you have any MFA configured, means multi-factor apart from the username and credentials, someone using once you click on credentials, it will ask for the password, right? Not password, it will ask for the code, or 6-digit code, or whether you are sending a message to your mobile to get the code. So that code we have to enter after sending after we, okay, after we type a username and password, and we are getting again, okay, we are getting an two-factor authentication, where you will be having authenticator apps, or you are sending an okay, message to your mobile number, or either you are calling through your mobile number, they will providing one code, right? So after that you are sending, okay, you are entering the code, 6-digit code here, then only it will going to access. So if you have configured any MFA, so it is going to send an access challenge message. Okay, so the server will send an access challenge message if there is any passcode, or if there is any token configured for this, so that will be going to send in the access challenge. Okay, so in the access challenge, what it is going to, okay, ask for is, so if there are any passcodes, or yeah, if there is any passcodes, or if there is any pin that you are set after entering the user and password, where if you have set any pin, okay, or if you set any, okay, secondary password, or if you set any token for this is just like an secondary authentication. Okay, if you have set for this, the server will request for the access challenge, and the router will, okay, the router will be sending this to your user with access challenge message. Okay, if you have anything like that, you have to enter here. Okay, then it will be, okay, it will be reaching to the server. So let's drag this. Okay, so it will be challenging you that if you have any, okay, secondary password configure, or if you have any pin set for this as a secondary authentication method, or if you have any token, okay, someone having their some chip is there. So in that chip they will be getting an passcode, right? So by using that chip, they whatever the passcode that they are seeing on the chip, they are going to enter in their okay, in their user machine, and that, okay, that is going to the radius server in the access challenge only. That is going to send to the radius server. Once that is accepted, and what server is going to do means, server is going to send an access accept message. Okay, so server is going to send an access accept message. So that will be receiving on the router. The router will send the same thing. Okay, the router will send the same thing to the user with access accept message. Whenever the user receives accept message, the user will going to authenticate, okay, and going to log in successfully to the router. Okay, so this is how the communication will happen. But when the server is going to send an access reject message, okay, so whenever there is a wrong credential that you have provided, okay, let's suppose I have this credential admin and tbn, but you are going with, okay, you know the username but you don't know the password. You are going with any, you are going with this wrong password. Okay, you are sending these credentials in an access request message, and once this, okay, credential receives on the server, the server will check whether these entries are available in the server database or not. So actually we will be having admin and tbn as our admin and tbn as our okay, access credentials, but we are providing a wrong password here. So in that case, what server will do means, server will send an access reject message. Okay, the server will send, instead of access challenge and access accept, so it is going to send an access reject message saying that invalid username and credentials, access reject. Okay, so access reject message, and it is going to share to the router, and router will send that access reject the same thing to the user, and then the user will not get an access to the router. Okay, so it will be providing an okay, reject message to the user saying that invalid username or credentials. Likewise, we are okay, this user and the server is going to share all this, okay, all these messages between them, and once the credentials are approved, then only the user get an access to the, then only the users get an access to the, okay, the router or any network device that they want to access. Okay, so this is mainly about packets, so authentication packets, but mostly we are focusing here on the authentication only. Okay, so we are not going to focus on authorization or accounting. but we are mostly focusing on authentication, how we are going to authenticate the users using an ACS servers. And apart from that, we can also see the radius, redundancy in the radius servers as well. Okay, so do you have any questions till now? Any questions till now?
No, sir, it is fine.
Others, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Yeah, see here we can also use two radius servers at a time to have a redundancy. Okay, so you will be having an user, okay, and you can have two radius servers, and these two radius servers you can configure as an weightage. Okay, so if you are using a two radius servers in your network, so you can configure two radius servers in a, okay, one will be an primary and other one will be an secondary. So this primary will be, okay, we can configure using an weightage. Okay, so here for, okay, we are using for primary the weightage as 80, so that whenever the request come from the user, always this primary will take care because of higher weightage. And here the weightage will be 20, so this will take an less load. Okay, so whenever request comes from the user, so always the primary radius server will be taken care. And if this primary server goes down, okay, so we will be having a secondary. So because this secondary server has a less weightage, so once the primary server goes down, this secondary server will be taking the role of the primary, and it will be going to send and whatever the request comes from the users, it will be going to use the secondary server will be going to what okay it is going to respond for the access request all these messages. Okay, so this we can also use two radius servers at a time. Okay, for redundancy we can use this. Okay, so we can use two radius servers at a time by configuring two radius servers, and one will be a primary. And how you can define the primary means based on the weightage, and the weightage which has 80, that will be considered as a primary, and second one weightage as a 20, that will be considered as a secondary. Okay, all the access, okay, all the request comes to the primary, okay, when primary is alive. So if primary goes down, the secondary will take care of this. Okay, so this is how the radius is going to work in AAA concept. Okay, so do you have any questions? So we can do one lab on this. Okay, so most probably we are doing a lab and the Cisco packet tracer. So this mostly will be having in GNS3 we don't have ACS servers. So but in the Cisco packet tracer we'll be having servers that we can use. So you can practice this, okay, under the Cisco packet tracer only. So let me open the Cisco packet tracer. Guys, any questions till now on the radius? So see here, first we can take one router here. So which, okay, you can take any router. I am going to take 2911 router here, and for this we'll take one switch, okay, to connect to the router, and under this switch we'll take two PCs, And after that you can take one server, okay, which will be acting as an this will be acting as okay ACS servers. So let's connect all this. Okay, this is our topology for this radius lab. So we are going to connect. So PC0 is connected to switch, and PC1 is going to connect here, and I'm connecting switch to the router, and then router to the server. Okay, so let's start all the devices. So most probably it will be on only. So here in this case the devices will automatically will be on. What we have to do is we have to configure the things here. Okay, so first we can configure on the router. So let's go on the CLI. So here in the CLI, so first we need to show IP interface brief. So let me check what are the interfaces that I have connected. So gig 0/0, gig 0/1. Okay, so this is one network. Okay, this is one network and this is other network. So here will take first configuration mode. Okay, so interface gig 0/0 IP address. You can take 10.10.10.1. Okay, and subnet 255.255.255.0. Okay, no shut. And next interface gig 0/1 IP address 20.20.20.1 with subnet 255.255.255.0. This one also no shut. Okay, and after configuring this we can also configure okay IP address here on the PCs and also on the server as well. Okay, so we are going to configure manually only. So IP configuration here we'll be having static or DHCP. So you can also configure DHCP here on this interface so that it will act as an DHCP server and you can get automatically, but we can go with static. Okay, so this is an 10 dot network, right? So you have to use 10 dot network IPs only. Okay, so I'm going to use 10.10.10.10 for my PC 0 with subnet 255.255.255.0, and the default gateway should be 10.10.10.1. Okay, so the default gateway should be this one only, right, for our internal PCs. So whatever the IP that we have configured, the gateway should be the same. So this is a configuration for my PC one, and let's open on next PC. I'm going to use the same subnet, which is 10.10.10.20 with subnet 255.255.0, and the default gateway should be same 10.10.10.1. Okay, and next here this is an okay this is other side of the other network, other side of the router, which we are using 20 dot network, right? So on the server also we are using the same thing. So here the static also I'm going to use 20.20.20.100 for my okay server, ACS server, and subnet 255.255.255.0, and default gateway should be 20.20.20.1. So this is the default gateway for our router, right? So can we rename this? Mm, mm. Okay, and configure ACS server. Yeah, see here we have just completed only the general configuration. Okay, now I want to configure this. Okay, this router to, okay, whenever we are sending a request, authentication request from these two PCs for accessing the router. So what I am going to do is I am going to configure this as an router to reach out to the radius server. Okay, so for that, before going through the, okay, configuring a server, we can configure on the router first. Okay, so in the router, so what you have to do is, so in the configuration mode there is a command AAA new model. Okay, so this is a configuration AAA new model where we are going to enable AAA concept here. Okay, and after that you have to use the command radius server. So radius server, and you have to give the name, whatever the name that you want. uh, okay, I have given a radius server ACS as an server name, and we are entering into the ACS server. So what we are going to define here is what is our radius server IP address. So what we have configured here, 20.20.20.100, right? So that is the IP address that you have to configure here for the radius server. Okay, so inside the radius server you have to type address IPv4 and radius server IP, which is 20.20.20.100. Okay, and after that you have to configure one, okay, pass key. Whenever you are sending an authentication request from the router to the ACS server, so this ACS server has to know, okay, whenever you, okay, whenever this we are going to configure an pass key here. Okay, let's suppose key as Cisco 123. Okay, I have configured this pass key as Cisco 123. The same we are going to configure here in the ACS router. Whenever authentication request, okay, access request message comes from the router, this router and the server will going to, okay, match this pass key. Okay, whatever the pass key that we have created, they are going to match this pass key. Then only it is going to send an, okay, whatever the information that the router has uh, provided. Okay, so if this pass key is not matching, so the server will not respond for that message. Because so if you want to know whether this request is coming from the legitimate router or not, so using this pass key the ACS server will identify. Okay, that's what we are going to configure here this. Okay, so this pass key is must and should. And after that, so this completes our, okay, radius configuration. And after that you have to mention, okay, what type of, okay, what type of users that you want to, who are the users that you want to access, that you have to that you have to define here. Okay, using the command AAA authentication. Okay, and with login default group radius local. Okay, so you have to mention this, and whatever the users that we are going to configure here in the radius server, that's what we are defining here. Okay, so login default group with radius local, whatever the users that we are going to create in the radius, that we are defining here. Okay, whatever the users that are available in the radius server, that we are going to authenticate. Okay, and after that you have to mention, so after that you have to mention line VTY 024, and then login authentication default. Okay, so this is also one thing you have to mention, because whenever you are login, okay, whenever you are configuring line v2 sh, so it has to be, the router has to be accept. So that's why we are configuring this line v2, and this will be taken care. Okay, once it is done, So just come out of it and do save the configuration. Okay, these are the configuration that we have required to get, okay, authenticate in the server, authenticate the router using an authentication server. Okay, so this is a configuration that we are going to use here in the router. And apart from that, you have to configure ACS server as an radius. Okay, so what how we are going to create means, here in the ACS server, once you click on this ACS server, you will get the tabs here. Okay, physical configuration, services, desktop. So in the services, you will be having multiple services here. You can use this server as multiple servers like HTTP server, DHCP server, TFTP, DNS, syslog, everything. Okay, now in this case we are going to use this server as an AAA. Okay, so in the AAA, so here we are going to use the service. Okay, so if you want to use this AAA service, you have to enable the service on, and here you have to give the client name. Okay, who are going to send you an authentication request. Okay, so for for the server, we will get an authentication request from the router, right? For the router, we are getting authentication request from the users. Okay, but for the ACS server, this router is a client. Okay, how many routers that the route how many from how many routers the server is getting an authentication request, those will be calling as an clients. Okay, now in this case I have only one router. I am going to define the client name here, which is whatever the host name that you have on the router. So you can use this. I'm using a router 0 as a client name, and client IP should be 20.20.20.1. Okay, which is our gate. Okay, which is our router IP in this side. Okay, and the secret. Okay, the secret key is whatever we have configured. The we here we can call it as an pass key or secret key, whatever we have configured here as a key. So what we have configured key here, Cisco 123, right? That is a secret. Okay, that you have to configure here as well. That you have to mention here, Cisco 123, so that whenever we get an request from the client, which is our router, and it will be going to match this secret key. If the secret key is not matching, so the router will, okay, the server will be, okay, denying that request. Okay, here in the server type, you can use whether it is an radius or tecax. So in this case we are going to use radius. Okay, and this is some network configuration or client configuration, and you can just click on add. Those information will be added. Likewise, if we are having multiple routers, okay, now we have only one client right now. If you have multiple routers, okay, let's take, I have connected 4 or 5 routers in the network, and if I want to log in all those routers, I will send a request to the authentication server, which is radius. Okay, so you have to use the same thing. Okay, so if you have router 1, you can use router 1. What is the router IP here? Okay, and secret key, whatever the secret key that you have configured on the router, and use the server type as a radius. So you can click on add. The second client also will be added. Once the client configuration is done, now you have to set up the users. Okay, how many users that you want to create, you can use here. So I'm going to create an user admin, and password I'm going to give, okay, tbn at the rate 12345. I'm just clicking on add, and also I'm going to create one more admin, tb networks, and I'm going to use, okay, I'm going to use the same password, not a problem. Okay, likewise you can create multiple users. Okay, so whatever the users that are available here in this database, so if that matching with the access request provided by the, okay, clients, so it is going to send an access, okay, access accept message. Okay, this is a configuration that we have to do in the routers. Okay, servers as well. So once it is done, we are good to go. So now what we are doing is, from the CLI of our PCs, okay, from the command prompt, we are going to, okay, telnet or SSH, okay, to this router. So once we telnet, let's suppose I'm going to use telnet, so which is 10.10.10.1. So it is going to access for username. It is going to ask for the username. So you have to provide which usernames you have to provide, whatever the usernames that we have created here. Okay, let me use admin one first. So it is going to ask for the admin, and it is going to ask for the password. See here, now we got access for the from the PC. Okay, from the PC I have accessed the router. So if you see here, we are accessing router, right? So we haven't set an enable password. We have to set the enable password to access the routers, but we got an access. So how we got an access means we send an okay, once we access the okay telnet to the router asks for the who are you like message, and it will send that all the user credential information from PC02 router in the access request. And here the router verified whether it has an username and password locally, or it has to be sent to the external servers, which is our radius server. In this case, we haven't created any usernames in the locally router, right? In the local router we haven't created any users, but we have created authentication method as an radius. So this, the router will send an access request packet to the server, and the server will be verifying the user whether the username and password will be available here in the radius server or not. Once it is available, we are using this admin and tbn123 as password. So these credentials are available here. So once the credentials are available here, it will send an access, it will send an access challenge. If you are using any second okay two-factor authentication, it will request and we are providing those information. Otherwise it will directly send access, okay, accept message, and it will be forwarding that to the PC, and PC will be able to access the router CLI using a telnet. Okay, we can also configure SSH as well. So in the line VTY you can just configure that SSH thing as well, so you can use an SSH as well. So from the PC, okay, other PC I try to use one more, okay, telnet 10.10.10.1, which is our router IP, and it is asking for the username, right? I am going to use other username, TB networks. Okay, so I'm using a TB networks, which is other okay username, and it is asking for the password, right? I'm using the same password what we have configured. So now we got an access to the router. Okay, so this is how you can configure. Okay, you can configure okay radius, or you can configure tecax. Okay, and instead of maintaining the user, okay, instead of maintaining the user information locally on the routers, so we can use an external servers, because we are going to okay, we are going to rule out multiple things in the router. Because if you are configuring hundreds of users in one router, that will also burden on the router CPU, and that will also consume memory of this router CPU, right? So to overrule that, we are using an external authentication server where we are going to create all the users in the server. Okay, all the users in the server, whenever we are going to access the router will send an request to the radius server. The radius server will verify that, and if the users are available and user data in the user database, and if it is matching whatever the user credentials that we are providing, it will send an access, okay, accept message, and then it is going to send an okay, we are going to accept the okay, we are going to telnet or SSH to the router. If you are providing a wrong password or username, okay, let's suppose I am going to provide a wrong username and password. Telnet 10.10.10.1, sorry, user telnet 10.10.10.1. Okay, so I'm using an username admin, but I'm using a wrong password, so it will throw an error, login invalid, because this login credentials, okay, admin and password whatever I provided, that receives on the Radius server, and on the Radius server it will verify whatever the password that I have, username and password that I have given, and if that password matching or not, it will be verify here, or otherwise if the password, username and password is not matching, it will be throw an access reject, and we will get an like this. Okay, so we'll get a message like this: invalid, login invalid. Okay, connection to the 10.10.10.1 closed by the foreign host, like that it will be, you will get an message here. Okay, that's how the authentication will work on the Radius server. Okay, so do you have any questions or any doubts on this part?
Hello.
Bro,
Yes, Shiva Kumar, someone else.
bro, can we add multiple admins?
Multiple.
Multiple admins యాడ్ చేయలేమా అంటే ఒక్కొక్కరిని అట్లా యాడ్ చేసి
Yeah, multiple admins instance, you can add multiple admins, right? So here in this case I have added admin and TB networks as an two admins. Okay, so if you want you can configure here and you can click on add, it is going to add the admins here.
ఎట్ ఏ టైమ్ యాడ్
At a time we cannot, we have to configure one by one. At a time we cannot configure multiple admins at a time. In the router or in any networking device, you have to configure single admin at a time only, because if you are configuring multiple admins at a time, what will happen? So which admin will take which password, that that the networking device will be not, will they cannot handle, because we have to provide username and their respective password only once at a time. Okay, so we have to create one by one only, not all at a time.
In particular user, they will give na access na L1 and L2 access, read and write. Read access, some users write access.
Hmm.
To configure in this server only or on any other?
I think this we this server will be handling that one as well. Okay, I think in this topology we are using this ACS server, right? I think
Yes.
we don't have enough configuration here, but we can do here in the router as well. Okay, we'll be having
Hmm.
line VTY, right? So from there you can, so it is also asking admin, so config. So whenever you are configuring username and password, okay, so let's take username. So this will be a local, but in the router we can also configure, but in this case there is no such thing here. But if you have any, okay, advanced routing Radius servers, we can configure, that will be handling the router only. How we are configuring here in the, okay, routers. So here whenever you are configuring username, okay, username admin, okay, create an name admin, and here we will be having a privilege, right? Privilege levels, you will be having privilege levels. Okay, 0 to 15. Okay, 0 means you can get only the read only access. Okay, 15 means you will get an use, okay, read, write, and execute, all the options you will get. But whenever you give the, okay, privilege level 2, 3 or 4, you will just get an only the read only access, right? So in the same way you can also have the same thing in the servers as well, privilege levels. So based upon the privilege levels you can create the admins, and based upon their privilege level they will be getting an access to the devices. But here in this case, in this Radius server, we don't have that privilege levels right now. We are just create using this for authentication, right? So it will be going for authentication, and whenever we are setting that for the authentic authorization or accounting, so that will taken care. Okay. any questions?
Hello.
Yes, Vasunta.
I అన్న యాక్చువల్లీ ఏసీఎస్ సర్వర్లో ఆల్రెడీ ట్రిపుల్ ఏ సర్వీస్ అనేది మామూలుగా కాన్ఫిగర్ చేసి ఉంది కదా ఇప్పుడు.
అవును.
జనరల్గా ట్రిపుల్ ఏ సర్వీస్ ఎలా కాన్ఫిగర్ నార్మల్గా
Normal
కాన్ఫిగర్
what I mean,
అండ్
we will be having a servers, okay, where they will be having multiple services already there, so you can use that services.
ఓకే.
Hmm. So like how we have the servers, that okay, all the service will be pre-enabled, all everything. So based upon that, you have to enable, like how we are seeing the services here. So in the same way, all the servers will be having by default services will be there. Just we are going to do an enable disable. Okay.
ఓకే.
Yeah. Any
Big
questions?
organization we are using Radius or Techas. Techas not use Radius not using na
Sorry.
Radius server.
Hmm.
Now now Radius server you using or not?
Radius server will be mostly used, okay, because Radius server is an open standard where it can use anywhere. But if you want to use StackX, that will be in Cisco proprietary, okay. Whenever you will
Okay.
be having, okay, you can configure that only on the Cisco's.
But ICE server is the same authentication server is that no?
Sorry,
ICE
ICE.
ICE
Oh yeah, authentications, yes.
yes.
But that will not provide this much of, okay, security whenever you are using Radius and TechX. So this will
Okay.
mostly use, okay, Radius and TechX will mostly provide you an authentication in a secure manner.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions? So this ends our, okay, Radius concept. So you can just go ahead and if you have Cisco packet tracer, just go ahead and practice this. So in the group I will share the, okay, whatever the configuration that we have done on the router, and okay, you can use that configuration, and you can also verify this video for okay, server configuration. That's it. Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can reach out to me. We'll be available on WhatsApp, and we'll rectify your queries. Okay. So any questions for now? Any questions, guys? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, guys. If you don't have any questions, we can wind up this session here, and we can meet tomorrow at same time for TechX. So the TechX also will be a same thing, but it will be using a different protocol. We can discuss tomorrow. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining the session. Have a good day. Bye.